A dad's love stronger than every storm. The thunder roared outside, shaking the little house with a violence that made the windows rattle. Rain pounded against the roof, and the wind howled like a beast. Inside, sitting in the dim glow of a single lamp, sat Daniel, clutching his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, close to his chest. Her small body trembled as the storm raged on, but his arms held her steady. "Daddy," she whispered through tears, "are we going to be okay?" But Daniel wasn't just talking about the storm outside. He was talking about the relentless hardships, the waves of loss, the endless trials he had been forced to face ever since Emma's mother passed away. That night wasn't just about battling thunder and lightning. It was about battling everything that threatened to break them. Daniel hadn't chosen to be a single father, but life had left him no choice. His wife, Sarah, had been the light of their lives, the warmth of their home. Losing her to a sudden illness had shattered him, but he knew one thing with unshakable certainty. Emma needed him. He had to be her anchor, her shield, her guiding light through every storm life would send their way. Raising her alone was far from easy. Mornings were filled with hurried breakfasts and tangled hair that he never seemed to braid quite right. Afternoons meant juggling his construction job with picking her up from school on time. Evenings were the hardest, when silence filled the spaces Sarah used to occupy when Emma would sometimes cry herself to sleep. Asking why her mom couldn't come back, Daniel often broke down in private, his head buried in his calloused hands, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. But in front of Emma, he stood tall, smiling, steady, because he knew that love wasn't about being perfect. Love was about being present, about holding on when everything else tried to tear you apart. One winter evening, a real storm tested them like never before. The power went out, plunging the house into darkness. The wind grew so fierce that Daniel feared the roof might give way. Emma clung to him, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, what if the storm takes our house away?" she cried. Daniel's heart ached at her words, but he lifted her chin gently. "Emma, a house is just wood and bricks. But you and me, we're stronger than that. As long as I've got you, nothing can tear us apart. Do you believe me?" Through trembling lips, she nodded. That night, Daniel lit a candle and sat with her by the window, telling stories about her mother, about her laughter, her kindness, her dreams. They laughed through tears, and for a moment, the storm outside faded into the background. Love was louder than the thunder. Love was brighter than the lightning. As years went by, storms both literal and metaphorical continued to come. Emma grew older, and with each challenge, she saw the strength of her father's love. When she failed her first big test, he reminded her that mistakes were not the end, but the beginning of learning. And when she once came home in tears after being bullied, he held her hands and said, "Storms will always come, sweetheart. But remember, you're stronger than you think, and I'll always be here until you see that strength in yourself." Emma began to understand. Her father wasn't just surviving the storms, he was teaching her how to weather them too. Years later, as Emma stood on the stage at her graduation, her eyes scanned the crowd until they found him, her father, standing tall with tears in his eyes and pride in his smile. In that moment, she realized the truth. Her dad hadn't just been her protector, he'd been her anchor, her teacher, her quiet hero, who had given up everything so she could rise. When she gave her speech, her voice trembled as she said, "Some kids grow up with heroes they only see in books or movies. But my hero has been sitting in the audience my whole life, my dad. His love has been stronger than every storm we've faced, and it's the reason I'm standing here today." The crowd erupted in applause, but Daniel only heard his daughter's words, "Stronger than every storm." Yes, that was what a father's love had to be, unyielding, unbreakable, enduring.